good evening and welcome back. So Boris Johnson sets out a plan for significant normality by Christmas. And although they have the by Christmas plan there, as far as I can tell from the research I've done, is that it is predominantly down to trying to get people back in work and children back in school and in their education, further education, by September. So the main changes, as they say, under the new guidelines, people may use public transport for journeys immediately, while advice for employers will change from 1st of August. The idea is to have a month, or just over a month, in order to try and assimilate to the reverting back to how it was before. So the change is not a new normal, but the old normal, what people are used to and what people are happy with and what worked beforehand. So, as he said, companies will have more discretion to bring staff back to workplaces if it is safe to do so, and Mr. Johnson added he was hoping for the best and planning for the worst. So at a news conference in Downing Street, the PM said the plan remains conditional on continued progress in controlling the virus and preventing a second wave of infections that could overwhelm the NHS. Well, the NHS is always overwhelmed. That's why we've seen another £3 billion of funding for it. It's been that way for many years now. But it isn't a problem from the coronavirus in particular. As we've seen with any critical care workers, that the coronavirus hasn't been the reason for them to be overwhelmed. So sure, there will be a much bigger systemic problem within the NHS in terms of allocating their funding adequately in order to get the services to everybody that needs it, but it isn't because of the coronavirus. That's a much more endemic problem for them to sort out. On top of that, as we've said before, that if you keep people hidden away, then you're not going to get herd immunity, in which case you will get a second wave, and the virus is going to mutate, in which case you will get a second wave. That's why Sweden is doing perfectly fine at the moment. So, as he says, it is my strong and sincere hope that we'll be able to review the outstanding restrictions and allow a more significant return to normality from November at the earliest, possibly in time for Christmas. Devolved administrations in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have the power to set their own timings for the easing of restrictions, which is nice. We're all a fan of local authorities setting their own rules that are more accountable to the citizens, of course. The Welsh government said, just keep working from home. They're not a fan of economic prosperity, so we'll ignore them. There have, of course, been more COVID deaths. Whether or not they're actually COVID deaths, that's up for you to decide. On Thursday, the government's chief scientific advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, told MPs there was absolutely no reason to change the government's current guidance on working from home. And as always, when you have any specialist, you go, cool, that's your area of expertise. Now let's weigh it up with other people in this area of expertise and go, brilliant, thank you for the help, thank you for your advice, but the negatives you've outlaid here do not outweigh the negatives by not doing anything, by not allowing people to return back to work, so we're going to go with that. It's a lose-lose, sure, but we want to minimise the harm, so that's what we're going to do. So as Sir Patrick Vallance says, home working was still a perfectly good option for many, and if they wish to do that, then of course they can still do that. If it's a thing of needing to be in the office because of the social interactions and being able to be you're working harder because you're in an office environment or because you need to be available at a notice call, then fair enough. You're going to do better off in an office instead of just being at home. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said he will look at the details of the government's plan to get people back to work, but stressed this can't be done on a wing and a prayer and it requires a credible plan and national leadership. So, politicking at its finest. They say that the smaller companies need support. Well, yes, if you're going with the 24th of July that people need to wear masks inside stores, then you're going to fuck them over. Simply done. So, from the 25th of July, indoor gyms, pools and other sports facilities can reopen. The 1st of August, the government will update its advice on going to work, asking employers to make decisions about how and where their staff can work safely, as well as most remaining leisure settings, like bowling, skating rings, casinos and all close contact services, will be allowed to open. Live indoor theatre and concerts will be able to resume with socially distanced audiences, so bump up those ticket prices. Wedding receptions for up to 30 people will be allowed from next month. What a treat. From September, schools, nurseries and colleges will be open for all children. What exactly? And young people on a full-time basis, while universities are also working to reopen as fully as possible. while getting even more money. From October, the government intends to allow audiences to return to stadiums, while conferences and other business events can recommence subject to the outcome of pilots. So, again, as I say, I think the main goal here is for schooling to be returned. So he reiterated previously announced plans to pause the shielding programme for vulnerable people in England at the end of July. But disability groups said, oh no, but we need more shielding. So if you can work from home, then do. And if you can't, then at some point, you've got to be responsible for your own actions. And you can't rely on the government to take care of you. If this is going to be disheartening and you're going to feel like you've been left out in the cold and the government isn't looking after you, then good. Do not expect anybody else to look after you. The world doesn't owe you anything. It's up to you to make something for yourself. And that goes for everybody, not just people with disabilities, but literally everybody in the world. Don't expect anything to be given to you. You have to earn it. So their analysis is exactly what you'd expect, propping up SAGE and the like. And they're concerned about a second wave, which will only happen if the lockdown is lifted too late, but won't happen if it's lifted too soon. Simple as that, essentially. But, as always, stay safe. By which I mean just exercise, eat right, be healthy, and you'll be completely fine. And as always, until next time, have a good one.